to encourage them to thank them for what they did, the quick response time that they had, and for taking the action. They took the action to take a bad guy off the streets, off that, to save a lot of lives. And I think it's quite apparent now that we know what we do know. Still a lot of facts to come in on all the details behind the scenes. But the good news is they saved a lot of lives by taking action the way they did. School system also, will be trying to reach out to them probably in the near future once they get back there to really talk about what they done. It looks like they did everything they could do to minimize a tragic situation. So really just up here today just to make sure they knew that we were thinking about them, that we care about them, and we just want to thank them for their service to the community.
Which family members, Governor? Of officers or some of the victims of the shooting at the school, or both?
No. This is basically the officers that were here today and some of their families. I mean, the members, the victims, and the school. Those will be different times that we'll be able to do that. But again, we'll be back to address some of those issues also. But really, it had to do with a lot of the police officers up there today, their families, a lot of the administration, and just really up there talking to them a little bit for what they went through and what the families went through. A lot of those officers had children in school. In situations like that.
Governor, all the red flags were there. Why weren't the red flag laws?
I mean, the red flag laws have never been in place in Missouri. You're still talking about somebody with a mental illness that went into it and committed a criminal act. Really, the school had a lockdown. They had it locked down. They did exactly what they're supposed to do. The response of the officers is exactly what they should do. You got a criminal that committed a criminal act, And all the laws in the world are not going to stop those things when they occur, when somebody's a violent criminal and they go out there and commit a crime. Exactly why they're violating it.
Governor, last week, police on October 15th went to his home, found a gun, but because of your lawmakers' Second Amendment act that was passed in 2017, they weren't allowed to confiscate that weapon because he didn't have a prior felony conviction. Across the river in Illinois, had the same situation happened, this gun would have been confiscated because his family knew that he had mental illness, as you claimed. Why not change the law and make these officers' lives easier to help them confiscate weapons and get them off the street for people who don't need to have them?
Well, first of all, the information when you start that question is inaccurate, because as the federal laws, he didn't violate the federal laws, and you're talking about a long
Correct,
rifle.
but the Second Amendment
I'm
Protection
saying.
Act
The
is,
Second Amendment doesn't protect him from taking a mental health. That's a separate issue in the state of Missouri that we look at, whether somebody has mental health issues or not. I don't think there's any question. If people have mental health issues, you can take their weapons on that. And that's part of the bill that was passed. And I think you can go in there and read that if you go do that.
Under what law?
What law? Yeah,
no,
can you clarify?
It actually says you can't.
I just answered your question. No, it doesn't say that at all. If you go in there and read it, if somebody is incompetent on mental health, issues, you can to do that. And if they're found by a court, especially, they can do that. Look, everybody's trying to make this the gun issue. I get that on the media side of it. But the bottom line is a person, whether it's a bomb, whether it's a rifle, whether it's a car, no matter where you live, whether it's in St. Louis is no different in Chicago, El Paso, Philadelphia, Seattle, you can go all across the country, the strictest gun laws in the nation. And they have the same problems that we have here. And what happened in this school was a tragedy. It was a tragedy for the students, it was a tragedy for the school, but it happens almost every week in St. Louis. Until we get more police officers on the streets, till we start prosecuting violent criminals and locking them up in this state, this is not going to change. That's what's going to have to take. We've put a record amount of money in the budget this year, almost a 23% increase in mental health. We've been up here to help with safe streets. We've been up here to work with the Urban League. A lot of actions were taken. They're trying to protect schools and protect everybody else on those streets every day. But there's a lot, you just got to keep working. We've worked with city administrators ever since I've been governor. I've met with the mayors early on trying to figure out what we can do to be able to help with the situations. And we're going to continue to do that.
You believe there should be an armed officer in every school?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to have security officers, I think you've got to really reevaluate that. I mean, that's up to the schools to decide that. But if you're going to have a security officer in there, you sure want them to be able to provide security. I think most people think whether you went wherever you might go, if you've got armed people in there, I think it makes a difference.
How can you say you're pro-police?
But again, but again, listen, if you want to ask me questions, I'll answer your questions. But if you're going to sit there and interrupt me when I'm asking questions, I don't need to talk to you anymore. I'll be glad to talk to these other reporters here to show a little bit of respect.
I thought you were finished. I apologize.
No, you didn't.
We'll take one more question.
Yeah.
How can you say you're pro-police if this police department is suing you to overturn the Second Amendment Preservation Act?
I'm going to tell you something. You know, the cities can take whatever action they want, and that's a legal action that can take. I've been a law-abiding citizen all my life. I am going to support people to have weapons that are law-abiding citizens. I'm never going to take that right away from them. The legislators decided not to do either. That doesn't say you can't take them away from violent criminals. Doesn't say you can't take them away from mental health issue. I think all those issues are things to be talked about to be able to do that. But I think this is a lot more spin to it than really what the case is. What we need to find out is what created this young man to do what he did. You know, that's the whole, you're talking about a young guy. And what actions were taken and how do we do things better? How do we secure the center? It goes back to you. What things can we do?
Did you meet face-to-face with some of the officers that came face-to-face with this gunman, and what was your message to them?
I did. I thank them for their service. I thank them for doing that every day. You know, so many times they've been critical, you know, with all the people out there that, you know, defund the police and all of those things. These guys did exactly what nobody else wanted to do and went into that facility in a hot situation and took out a shooter. You know, if we don't have those people on the front lines out there doing things that none of us, the rest of us, want to do, you know, I thank them for their service. I thank them for doing that. I thank their families for being behind them to make sure they support them when other people don't support them every day. You know, you get to thinking about some of the things that are being said politically. You know, when you start talking about trying to send somebody into a situation like that, whether some people would say, you know, social workers or go to a different avenue, what do you think would have happened if that would have occurred with a guy with 600 rounds in there and no law enforcement to take him out? You know, people really need to take a step back and think what it is law enforcement do every day. And what I really went up there to do was tell them how much I appreciate what they do every day and how much I thank them for doing it.
Right.
Thank you.
May I ask my